you think they'll drop the bomb?
Здравствуйте, мистер Уотер. Огромное спасибо, что согласились со мной поговорить. Наш общий друг Рэнди согласился передать вам мое письмо. Я уже 10 лет живу на войне и пытаюсь рассказывать на Западе о том, что я вижу и как живу в этих непростых условиях. Сейчас мне очень важно услышать ваше мнение обо всем, что происходит. Потому, с вашего позволения, начнем.
Hello, Mr. Waters. It's a great pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for agreeing to have this interview with me. Faina thanks Randy for her help in connecting you two together. So thank you very much for agreeing for this interview. It's been now 10 years that Faina lives in the war zone, and she's doing everything that she can to bring information over to everyone in the world about what it's like and how it is to live there. And she thinks that this interview will help greatly to deliver this information even further. Thank you.
Как человек, который говорит о глобальных конфликтах, как вы оцениваете войну в Донбассе и секторе Газа? То влияние, которое она оказала на людей?
The first question is, as a person who speaks a lot about the global conflicts, how do you evaluate the war in Donbass and in the Gaza Strip? And what do you think is the influence that these conflicts have had on people?
Well, I don't live in Donetsk or Luhansk or anywhere else in the Donbass. I've never been there. I've had friends who've visited, and I've followed something of what's happened in the last couple of years. I mean, it seems clear to me that it would have been better either to negotiate new security arrangements with the Russian Federation at some point between 2014 and 2022, when this special military operation started. And at any point since then, it would have been a good thing. Unfortunately, this is not what the American empire wants. And it has also persuaded a number of its allies in Europe that they shouldn't want it either. Not least England. I'm an Englishman, so this affects me as well. How we can persuade them that this war should never have started and that it should stop as soon as possible. I'd be very interested in Faina's ideas about how that might happen. So is she a native of the Donbass? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, she is from Lugansk and she lives in Lugansk.
Я думаю, что в первую очередь нужно было сделать так, чтобы было другое правительство на Украине, чтобы они исполнили Минские соглашения.
Well, first of all, the different government in Ukraine would actually help. The government that would actually do as it was to be done in accordance with the Minsk agreements.
Absolutely, yeah. Which was the platform that Zelensky stood on when he was voted in as the president of the Ukraine back whenever it was. I've written this myself personally so many times that I'm sick of it, of writing it. How old is Faina?
Он спросил, сколько тебе лет. Тебе сейчас 15? At the moment, Faina is 15. She will have her birthday soon. She'll turn 16 on the 2nd of October.
Well, let's hope something happens before the 2nd of October to make her birthday a happy one. I had a short correspondence at the beginning of the war with a young woman older than Faina, but not very much older, called Alina something or other, Miro something or other. I can't remember the rest of her name. But that correspondence came to an end. I think she came under pressure from people because the last email I got back from her was saying she didn't agree with me about everything, but she did agree with me that peace would be a negotiated settlement would be a good idea. But the last thing I heard from Alina, which caused me great concern, was a PS, a postscript, an addition to her last. I should really pull it up and tell it to you, but I might lose you, so I don't want to do that. But basically, it suddenly was a different voice. it was no longer Alina talking to me. It was somebody looking over her shoulder, placing her fingers on the keyboard, telling me that I was wrong about everything. And what a shame it was that I couldn't just support the fight against Putin, the new Hitler, and evil Russia, and all of that. So somebody was standing behind her, putting her fingers. I know it, and I really worry about her. This is a young woman who just sent me a picture of her pet cat, because in the correspondence, I'd asked her if she had a dog, and she said, no, I don't, but I have a cat, and this is a picture. And she was a big fan of my work, and even went so far as to say she'd been writing a dissertation for university on The Final Cut, which is one of the last records I made when I was at Pink Floyd, and how it was her favorite. And it's a very anti-war record. It's very much a personal expression of how I feel. As I'm sure Faina knows, I lost my father in the Second World War when I was this big, you know. I was 5 months old when my father was killed. So I'm no fan of these conflicts, but particularly the loss of life in the Ukraine. Alongside Gaza is, I nearly said, is the most tragic. Obviously, it's no more tragic than murdering 1 million Iraqis or whatever, but everything that the American empire does in foreign countries, by and large, seeks only to feather the nests of American plutocrats, and it couldn't care less about the lives of people in foreign lands like Ukraine. And Ukraine is a foreign country. And make no mistake about it, I know Faina must know this. The people of Ukraine surely by now must know that the United States government couldn't care less about your lives.
Считаете ли вы, что западные СМИ справедливо отражают ситуацию в Донбассе и в секторе Газа?
Do you think the Western media are fair and just in their coverage of the situation in Donbass and in the Gaza Strip?
No, of course not.
Конечно, нет.
The mainstream media in the West write whatever they're told to write. This is not providing anybody with news. This is writing the narrative that they want written. That is clear, Faina. We all know that. Okay. What I'd like to know for Faina and successive generations of Ukrainians, I don't care if they're from Lubansk or Donetsk or from Western Ukraine, but for the future, I'd like to know her opinion about, for instance, what can I do to help Faina get democracy back? As we know, Ukraine is not democratic, even faintly in any way. It's unbearably corrupt. And also, Zelensky has stamped down on all opposition parties. Anything that even hints at being socialist, for instance, is stamped out. It's criminalized. So how can the people of Ukraine? There hasn't been any democracy since the coup, the illegal Western-inspired, US-backed and paid for Maidan coup in 2014. I'm sure she knows that. And I'm sure, do most people in Ukraine know that? It's very unclear to me who knows what and what the feeling is. I think I know what it is where she lives in the east of Ukraine. I have no idea what it is in the west. Do they really support Bandera and the memory of all of that? I'm sorry, it's a long question, but...
No, it's just a very good question, and it's a very sad question. But let me translate it for Faina.
Мне кажется, что правда поддерживает, потому что это же буквально пропаганда 10 лет. Люди просто уже не понимают, что происходит. Им промыли мозги.
Unfortunately, regarding the last part of your question about the support of Bandera in the Western Ukraine, unfortunately, it is true, and they truly support Bandera and all these ideas. because this was years and years of brainwashing. It's not just the last 10 years. It started much earlier.
Well, that's tragic, clearly.
Это трагическая совершенно вещь.
But it's a tragedy that we're all having to live with, because the idea of one group of people's supremacy over another group's, like in Bandera's case, the supremacy of Northern European Aryan white people over Jewish people or colored people or anything, is one of the great tragedies that's faced us over the last several hundred years. And it's what we all, Faina and me and you, have to join together to fight, is this idea that they may be so much better than we are, that it's okay to burn us to death in that union building in Odessa, like they did. When we speak of what can we do for Faina and other young people in order to encourage the rest of the world to support the idea that it is important that all people have equal human rights and that none of us are superior to anyone else on earth. We are all African. We are. This is my message. That's my message in the final cut. That's my message today. I'm so pleased to be able to speak to this young woman today. And I'll shut up because I talk too much.
Мне кажется, вот это вот интервью его посмотрят многие люди и узнают куда больше.
Faina hopes that a lot of people shall see this interview and they will learn more from you because they will listen to you.
Really? Well, that's very kind. That moves my heart to hear this young woman say that to me.
Мне очень приятно, что ты это ему говоришь.
I wish that my voice was louder. In the West where I live, no one will print anything I say in the mainstream media because the idea that we should all have human rights is inconvenient to the West, particularly to the American empire, because they, the leaders of the American empire, the Doddery Joe Biden, Trump, whatever, Kamala Harris, all of them, they believe that they are innately superior to you, the Ukrainians, and to me. Joe Biden actually, and he's still the president of the United States, said in a TV interview, "We rule the world." He is so doddery. He believes that he is the emperor of the world. He's like some latter-day Julius Caesar, and that the United States is like the Roman. They rule everything, and they do so by the divine right of the fact that they are superior. Joe, no, you're not. You are inferior to those of us who care about our brothers and sisters. You are inferior to us because you believe in the wholesale slaughter of anyone who doesn't agree with you. Or, for instance, to go over to the Middle East, Joe supports the genocide of the Palestinian people. Vladimir Putin doesn't. I don't. Faina doesn't. Billions of us all over the world don't. Why? Because we care about December the 10th, Paris, 1948, the signing of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 30 articles. If we enshrined them in power and gave a proper, real United Nations and the ICC and the ICJ the power to enforce them, that would be the end of all war everywhere forever. Faina and the people of Luhansk and Donetsk could live in peace forever because the philosophies and policies of the Banderas and Joe Bidens of this world, and there's no difference between Bandera and Kamala Harris, their supremacists would be removed from our lives forever. And we could start to collaborate and cooperate with one another for the benefit of all the people of the world and for the benefit of this planet that we live on.
Безусловно.
Yes, that is so true.
I'll tell her this, tell Faina this, okay? Every morning I wake up, when I stop weeping, I gather myself together and I think I have to do at least one thing every day. So today, my one thing, and I may do something else, I don't know, but is speaking to you two and speaking to Faina. And I thank her for her questions. And I thank her for giving me the opportunity to express my feelings and for the opportunity to find this platform. It doesn't matter how big or how small the platform is. There's no difference between you and the BBC or the New York Times. The platform is important because of universal human rights, which is all Faina and I care about. It covers everything that worries us. So I'm thanking her again for talking to me today. Where do we go from here?
Хотели бы вы посетить Россию и Донбасс с концертами?
Would you like to come to Russia and to Donbass in particular with your concerts?
Well, I don't have a tour on the road at the moment. I was touring a show called This Is Not a Drill for 2 years. Sure, yeah, of course. You know, but well, there are no buts really. The Russians were inviting me to go and do gigs in St. Petersburg and Moscow. But for this summer, when I finished in December, people don't understand what it goes into putting on a rock and roll show like I do, and how much planning there is, and how many people there. You know, we're nearly 170 people on the road, and 30 tractor trailer trucks carrying all the equipment. It's a huge, huge thing. It's not like I go around with the balalaika and sing in, you know, bars. So it's a strange thing. Will I go on the road again? I've no idea. If I do, would I like to play in Russia and the Ukraine? Yeah, of course I would. How wonderful it would be to play in Ukraine as a celebration for the end of this insane war. But how do we bring it to an end? Because they are inexorable. The enemy, those who do not want peace, who want profit. It's only for profit, all of this. Let's not make any bones about it. Obviously, no country that believed in democracy would have removed democracy from Ukraine, would they? Right. Which they did in Maidan in 2014. That was not a democratic change of government. It was a military coup against the people of Ukraine. So they're not interested in democracy. They want money. And I promise you, what they will do in the ruins of Ukraine is steal everything you've got. And they will call it, it'll be like the Marshall Plan. It will be aid. No, it's not aid. It's whatever there is left, they will try and steal it. What have you got in terms, what's under the ground? We know you've got wheat, but what else have you got of value? They will try and steal it. That's why they're there. They're not there because they believe in freedom. And so you cannot believe the students of Bandera who would try and suggest that that is true. It's not true. So how do we get beyond this impasse? I think what's going to happen is eventually the Americans will stop sending money and arms, and the Brits will do whatever they're told. But then what's going to happen? There's going to have to be a negotiation. There will probably be a split, probably somewhere near where the battle lines are drawn now. probably all that area, the Donbass and the stuff in the south, in the south that joins them to Crimea, to Mariupol, that will probably become part of the Russian Federation, and maybe that Ukraine will be whatever. It's a small percentage of the idea that Russia wants to go on and invade Poland and Romania and then spread all over Europe is insane. That's what gets printed in our newspapers over here. And obviously, it's absurd. You would have to be the village idiot to believe that story. But people do, unfortunately. I'll stop talking again. I don't mean to trample over Faina.
При событиях в Украине Россия столкнулась с западной культурой отмены. На ваш взгляд, насколько такие меры необходимы и принесут ли они пользу западному обществу? Вы ранее говорили, что из-за выступлений на российском телевидении западные знаменитости теряют многие проекты и возможность выступать на родине. Вы назвали это абсурдом. Нужно ли как-то изменить эту ситуацию и что для этого требуется?
The next question is about the cancel culture that Russia faced when this conflict in Ukraine started. In your opinion, are such measures really necessary, and will the Western society benefit from such measures in any way? Earlier, you said that there are many Western artists who lose projects or lose possibility to perform in their home countries because they had appearances on the Russian television, and you called it an absurd situation. Do you think this situation can change? What needs to happen for it to change?
Good question.
Хороший вопрос, Фейн.
Yeah. As often as I can, I say the following. All my brothers, not everyone, but I have brothers and sisters all over the world, billions of us, and we are engaged in an existential battle to save the soul of the human race. So it's a very big emotional, philosophical, and moral battle between good and evil, right and wrong. It's as simple as that. So my belief is just what I said. I believe in universal human rights. So I believe that I have a moral responsibility to help any brother or sister of mine anywhere in the world who is in need and who I can help in any way. I believe it's a moral responsibility. The American empire and the UK government and the French government and the German government and the whatever, Western government, I can't speak for the Russian government. I'll tell you why. I don't speak Russian. I don't understand. I do read translations of the major speeches. But to go back to what I'm saying. So I try to take part in that existential battle. All right? That is why I'm talking to Faina today. I try and do something every day. Because if we lose that battle, if the fascists, if the United States government, if the enemy in that battle win, they will destroy this planet. They are destroying this planet. And every living thing that's on it, they are heading in that direction. So her question is extremely important. And the silencing of people like me, the cancelling of Roger Waters, is part of what the other side in the battle do to try and win the battle for the bad guys. So they have to frame me and Faina and Vladimir Putin, right, and many, many, many others as the bad guys, because they understand that this battle is going on, and Hamas and the people of Palestine and all Muslims and Arabs. In fact, anybody that they can frame as being different and being on the other side of the great battle. But it's not a battle for right and wrong. They don't even pretend it. It's a battle for power and wealth. And they have no moral compass to follow. I'll stop talking because what I'm saying is so obvious and self-evident. They do not, they believe in wealth and power, and that's all.
Что бы
И
вы
на-
хотели сказать тем и другим детям войны, попавшим в военных действиях?
What would you say to Faina and to other children of war who have suffered from that war?
You bring back to me a letter I wrote on my, I think, 76th birthday. I could probably find it. I talk about how when I was a war baby, literally, when I was that big,
Mhm.
where we were, I don't remember this, but you could hear the V1s, the German rockets, going over the top of where I lived. They were called doodlebugs. We called them doodlebugs. And you were okay until the engine stopped. If you heard the engine stop, that meant the bomb was coming down. And then your mother would throw you under the shelter, which was the kitchen table, in case the bomb landed near you, in order to protect you. So in this letter that I wrote, I mentioned that. And then I mentioned the fact that at the time, they were trying to cancel me because I was against the accusations being made towards Assad in Syria, saying that he had made chemical attacks on his own people. He hadn't. We know he hadn't now. The evidence is in, and we know I was right, and all the people who said he had were wrong. And the Americans and the French and the English flew to Syria and bombed Syrian people as an act of war because they claimed that Assad had used chemical weapons against his own people in Aleppo. No, in Douma. He hadn't, but they did it anyway. And in that piece, I remember I finished saying, am I an Assad apologist? No, I don't know Assad. But I do know he didn't do that. And I do know that my government should not have gone and bombed Syria. So my apologies are to all the babies under all the tables everywhere. And I have a message for them. I'm very sorry we done it, which is bad English, but I'm sorry that we did it. The rest of the human race. I apologize to all babies everywhere, which comes back to me, haunts me every morning when I wake up with Gaza going on over my shoulder. Not to mention your predicament in Lubansk.
Спасибо огромное за потрясающую беседу. У меня было огромное удовольствие с вами пообщаться.
Thank you so much for this absolutely incredible conversation. It was a great joy and a great honor to talk to you.
Well, okay, one
And
more thing.
еще тогда
One
одна вещь.
Yeah, one more thing.
Да.
So I'm saying to Faina is that if you're on the side in Ukraine, if you're in Lubansk, in the Donbass internet, and you've been bombed by the supporters of Bandera in the west of the country, you're a victim. You have a right to resist, and you must resist, and you must do it. You can do it in whatever seems necessary. Okay, but if you're somewhere in the West and you've been taught that somehow the Russian-speaking people in the East are inferior to you, you have been taught nonsense and you must resist it. And that is the harder job. The harder job is for Alina, my friend in the West, who I exchanged emails with. The harder thing is to resist the forces of fascism in Western Ukraine who believe themselves to be superior. That is the malignant cancer, the idea of superiority. Just like the idea of superiority in Israel, of the Israelis, their idea that they're superior to the Arabs in the region is destroying their lives, Palestinians' lives, and the whole of the Middle East. And it may well destroy the whole world. So it's these crazy ideas that somehow we're better than they are. No. You're all my brothers and sisters, whether you're from Western Ukraine or Eastern Ukraine or from Russia or from France or Germany or England, or it doesn't matter. We're all brothers and sisters. So that's what we have to cling on to. All right. So I'm not just speaking to Faina, I'm speaking to Alina as well. I hope Alina sees this. I really do. And I hope her cat's doing well. And I hope she isn't being bullied by some awful uncle who's a Nazi, who won't let her speak to me, which she could. She's got my email address. But I haven't heard a peep. I hope she's okay. Yeah, I'm to say that. Alina, I hope you're okay. Good.
When was the last time you heard from her?
A couple of years ago. Oh,
Couple of years
yeah,
ago.
a bit less than 2 years. September 22. This other young woman, her name is Alina Mirofanova, is her name.
Алина
This is what I
Мирофанова, может быть, Митрофанова.
This is what I wrote in August last year.
Вот,
A year
что он
ago.
написал год назад, в августе 23-го года.
I'll just read it. It's not
Он
very
хотел
long.
бы прочитать это.
Dear Alina, it's nearly a year since I heard from you. Are you okay? I think of you often. I'm still trying to encourage peace in Ukraine, but our American friends seem intent on fighting their proxy war to the last Ukrainian life. We must all keep working toward a ceasefire and the chance for a negotiated, mutually acceptable security compromise. There will be no victory for anyone. Victory was always a fantasy invented by the ideologues in Washington. You sent me a picture of your cat, Lucky, back in March 2022. Back then, you believed it was the Russians who refused to negotiate a settlement. But looking back, all the evidence points to the likelihood that it was the American neocons and their British poodle, Boris Johnson, who scuttled the Istanbul peace deal in April 22. Since then, your country has suffered nearly a year and a half of unnecessary slaughter of young Ukrainian men and young Russian men too. What a terrible waste of life. Anyway, I worry about you. If you're okay, please let me know. Love, your friend R. And I didn't hear back. That's a year ago.
Мы будем верить, что она ответит.
Let's hope that she will answer. Let's hope
Yeah.
that she's okay.
Yeah. Anyway, it was nice to speak to you today.
Он тебе очень благодарен за этот разговор сегодня.
Большое спасибо.
Yes, and thank you. That's very mutual. Thank
You're
you.
very welcome.
Что, готовы? Записали?
Так что отлично.
Давай тоже так сделаем. Да,
Thank
давай
you.
тоже так сделаем.
Ciao. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
I'm pressing the red button.
Okay.
Ciao.